Should be recording now. Oh yeah,
Okay.
I got the little button up at the top. It's flashing recording. Okay.
Yep. Oh, you want to be flashed? Okay.
Woo!
Oh God. Okay. Now we're censoring.
I have no problem
Great.
doing it.
There's another 2 weeks in jail for you on
Yes.
Facebook.
Facebook, yes. I'm
Yeah.
Eric Paul Johnson.
And I'm Eric Winsenson.
Okay. And we're going to read the replies to Still. Still what? When Time Stood Still. My mind blanked out on the title there. And I'm going to try it without headphones this week, and hopefully there won't be this echoey feedback kind of thing. And this way everyone can see how fabulous my hair is at 51, that I still have it, and it's long and it's beautiful. And I don't have the headphones.
Mine isn't as long. I actually went out and got a haircut, which I know I'm going to get COVID-19 shamed by everybody.
Why do you hate humanity, Eric?
Oh, that would be an entire podcast all on its own.
Well, maybe after we finish the E.L.O. podcast, we'll go into the Why Does Eric Winsenson Hate Humanity podcast and just run that forever. Okay.
Eric's Misanthropy, the podcast.
Yes. Who goes first? Oh, it's Winsenson who goes first.
Okay, well, Tracer Anthony says, one of my favorite E.L.O. ballads and arguably should have made the album's final cut. Would have had no issues with dropping another Heartbreaks for either this or Julie Don't Live Here No More.
Carl Proctor. Carl Proctor. It's better than the A-side. Oh, here we go. Okay. So we need to tighten things up, and I don't have a little bell.
I was about to say, he turns to stone when the sun comes out, or?
I don't know. But you get the next comment.
Nicholas Sadler says, when time stood still, when the B-side of the single is better than the A-side.
See, that's why those two are together. Those are pretty harsh words, because Hold On Tight's pretty good.
Yes, it is.
Mm-hmm. Mark Jealous. Is it just me, or after the pause post Bev Bevan's drum break, I want to merge into Sealed with a Kiss? Well, up until now it was just you, but now I'm going to hear that for the rest of my life every time that break comes in. And my head's going to, and when it's playing in my head, and I don't have control over a CD or MP3 or anything, that's what's going to happen. It's going to hit that break in When Time Stood Still, and then it's going to drift into Sealed with a Kiss.
And G. Brewer says, I love this song. I think this song has every bit of passion that the rest of Time has, and even more. Sounds distant and lonely to me, if that is what might be referred to as unfinished. It sounds intentional to me.
Yeah. I mean, if he's gonna release it, I'm sure he's not gonna release anything unfinished, even if it was just a B-side.
Well, the distant and lonely is why I like it a lot better than Another Heartbreaks, because I think that's trying to be distant and lonely, but it sounds more like I had to fill space, where When Time Stands Still sounds like, hey, this is a song that actually forwards the narrative.
Yeah, and I can see why it should sound lonely and what was it? I got to go back up here. Lonely and distant and lonely. Because, yeah, the guy definitely feels distant and lonely, 114 years away from his baby. Mike Hudson. I really hate it when my favorite bands put out singles that aren't on albums. Or rather, in this case, B-sides that aren't on albums, I should say. Because then it's often hard to get a copy of it, like Drum Dreams, which has never been released on anything other than the B-side of a 45. Yeah, I'm with you on that. A lot of people were. When Time Stood Still is a great song, as good as many of the tracks on Time. I would have a very hard time deciding what song this one would replace on the album. The album is too good to take anything off, at least with CD format. This song and Julie and the Bouncer could all have been added to the CD, kind of like how they added Time After Time to the cassette and CD versions of the original release of Secret Messages. I've heard rumors that Time was supposed to be a double LP. This I've never seen fully substantiated, but they were definitely more tracks recorded than would fit a single LP. But then again, that was often the way things were done back then. Bands would record 15 to 20 songs then cull it down to the best 10 or 12 for the album. There's a really great B-side on the Cars 45 for Let's Go. It's called That's It. Cool song. Doesn't appear on any Cars album. Might be on a reissue of Candio, but it wasn't on the original.
That's It, and Breakaway, and a few, and the other Cars non-album B-sides are on the collection Just What I Needed. It's a double CD collection that came out in the 90s. It's definitely worth getting, and it really expands on the greatest hits collection from the 80s. So, but it has demos and early versions of stuff as well as their B-sides. So definitely want to get that so you can hear that without having to listen to the B-side of your old, almost 41-year-old copy of Let's Go.
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you. The internet broke up when you started talking about the age of Let's Go.
Yeah.
Yeah, as for Time being a double album, I have something I should have looked before. I forgot to bring it up before we started doing this. I have something where Jeff is on, I think it's Rockline. People are calling in with questions. One of the questions was Time supposed to be a double album? And I think the show was in like 1990 or something, or 88. And Jeff said, no, it's always supposed to be a single album. Secret Messages, that was supposed to be a double album, but it was knocked down to a single. But Time, yeah, it was always supposed to be a single album. Maybe I'll tuck that into the Time bonus tracks episode when that's all finished. So you can hear Jeff Lynne say, no, always supposed to be a single album.
Yeah, but the good it doesn't the CD reissue of Time have these songs on it?
Yeah.
I know they were released on the Afterglow and the other box set, but doesn't the reissue of Time have these as bonus tracks?
Yeah, though the 2000, I think it came out 2001, something like that. The remaster reissue of Time, it's got the bonus tracks, and all three of those are on there. There might be another one too, but definitely Time, Julie, Bouncer, those are on there.
Okay, yep. Which that'd probably be the best way of doing it, unless you really well, if you're a big enough fan, you probably want the box sets anyway. But still, if you're on a budget, just get the get the CD.
Yeah.
Sonia Dockrell says, "Why wasn't When Time Stood Still on the album Time? Was it not finished in time to be on it?" See what you did there.
Well, noted E.L.O.ologist Dr. Pam Van Allen has the answer, because it's something that I've wondered too. She prefaces this by saying, "This person's credibility has been questioned, but the story makes sense to me. Supposedly, the information came from Bill Bottrell." Not sure who Bill is, but here's what could be the reason. For better or worse, Jeff changed the running order of Time late into the making of this album, recording Hold On Tight and Another Heartbreaks in Los Angeles without the rest of the band, except for Richard on the latter. After an initial test acetate pressed, they proved unsatisfactory. Lost my place. I've been reliably informed that this disc was virtually identical to the sequencing we all know and love. The first side ended with When Time Stood Still, dropped because its sparse, cymbal-heavy production was supposedly ruined by a combination of sibilance and inner groove distortion. Rather than delay the project significantly, Jeff chose not to reshuffle the entire LP, simply switching out When Time Stood Still with its instrumental replacement, produced in such a way that it didn't matter if this was affected by quality issues as much. Curiously, despite fitting into the plot around midpoint, Julie Don't Live Here wasn't ever intended for Time. So there you go. That could be the answer why. Space on the album, sound, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, which that I can definitely understand, because they had to use a shorter song there without a lot of complication.
Mm-hmm.
That then makes sense, because for younger listeners, inner groove distortion is when you get to the last song on an album. Typically, there's a reason that an album shouldn't be more than about 35 to 40. Well, I'm sorry, about no more than 20 minutes aside.
Mm-hmm.
because the last song on there, the grooves start getting closer and closer and closer together and more compact, which leads to distortion, especially if you get somebody who doesn't know how to cut an album properly, or like when the 80s happened, where they don't really care anymore. They're recycling the vinyl off of albums that didn't sell rather than using actually good virgin vinyl.
Mhm.
They're just there's probably little bits of paper in there anyway.
Ooh.
Some cases, and it's not really that great a quality. That great a quality, so they're not really going through the motions of paying the people who know what to do, because they're trying to start because they're really starting to try and press the cassettes and later on the CDs and get rid of the format. So their attitude is, whatever. And it gets a lot worse in the 80s than it was in the 70s. But yeah, if you listen to albums where you've got 50 to 60 minutes of music on the album, you can really start hearing that loss of sound as you get towards the last songs on the album. And it's very the worse your sound system is, also the more you notice it, because a lot of sound systems back then designed turntables, higher end turntables, tried to make it so that didn't affect things as much too.
There you go. I kind of sort of knew that, but now I can totally see where that's coming from.
Right. So that makes sense, because Another Heartbreaks is not that complicated musically.
Mm-hmm.
Where you would notice the distortion as much as you would something like When Time Stood Still, where there's a lot more to it. So,
right.
And it really does get on that high level where you got the cymbals and the treble and everything on there. That's where you get a lot of that distortion on a song is towards the end.
I can see that. And Dr. Van Allen continues, I'm a fountainhead of information. Eric W. shouldn't have been so pissy when I attempted to give him constructive feedback, or I would have been helping you all along. Okay.
Okay, constructive feedback, as in, I'm taking my stuff and going home because you were mean about some songs, and you didn't like songs that I like, so I am going to pack up my stuff and leave. I don't know if that's how you meant it. That's how I took it, and that's why I got a little bit on the edgy side, or I should say a little bit salty, is because I just don't comprehend that type of idea of Eric W. living in a city that Jeff Lynn probably barely even remembers visiting, even if he's been here a few times, doesn't know me from Adam, probably couldn't care less about what I feel about a song that's 40-something years old on a deep album track. And he's not going to quit the music business because I, as a lone person, don't like a song of his.
You despise Jungle.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh my God, he doesn't like Jungle. Well, see if I ever produce any music again. Yeah, no, that doesn't work that way. The way it works is everybody has their own opinions and everything. I'm asked to give my opinion. I gave my opinion. Yes, I do get harsh when I give opinions, but that's always been the way that I've written stuff, and always been the way that I've put it out there. I'm sorry if you don't like it, but that's just me. And I've never understood, because that's one thing I've kind of been a little bit annoyed by with the E.L.O. community, is it's like every song is a piece of gold that's been dropped from the heavens. And yeah. I was a member of a Yes discussion board back in the 90s for the longest time, and everybody practically knew that Tornado and Open Your Eyes were pieces of crap. No matter how big of a Yes fan you were, you knew when you were having to listen to a piece of crap, and fans were not shy in saying so. I listened to The Residents. If you listen to The Residents, you're listening to The Residents voluntarily unless somebody forces you to. Resonance fans will admit that there's a good portion of it that is boring, or sometimes just plain not that good. Because every band goes through its phases, and there's a whole bunch of band drama. Even if you don't even know who who the members of the band is, they still have their band drama, and it reflects in their recordings. Jethro Tull. Everybody was on the Jethro Tull board was more than willing to state their opinions of the fact that maybe Ian Anderson probably should have given a few more years off before performing live and doing a lot of singing again after his throat surgery. He got better over the years again, but the years follow especially in the 80s, years following his throat surgery, it did a major number on his singing voice. Very apparent in live concerts. And he knew it. Everybody knew it. I'm sure he read the fan stuff because one of his albums is called J Toll. One of their last album before they did the Christmas album was jtoll.com. So he was on the same thing that the rest of us were looking at. And he's not a Luddite not using the internet. Yeah. And so he's aware of what people's opinions were, and he basically didn't really even say anything about that. To tell you the truth, it's just, okay, people have opinions. Opinions are like, you know what?
Everybody's got
one. A portion of them stink.
Yeah.
So.
Well, that was why when I asked, anybody want to co-host an E.L.O. podcast with me? I was glad that Eric, right over there, said, oh, I'll do that. Because I knew that Eric wasn't going to wuss out or wasn't going to, try and, put a candy coating on anything he might not have liked. I knew Eric was going to say it straight out, and he was going to stick by it. And if he got any pushback, he was going to say, okay, and so it's what I thought. If you don't like it, I think I can handle that kind of disagreement in my life right now. So that was why I liked Eric. He wasn't going to, wasn't going to hold back, and he wasn't going to try and make it nice. He was going to, this is it. This is what I think. If you don't like it, tough Tic Tacs. I'll go on. So, yeah.
Yeah, which we could definitely benefit from Pam's knowledge.
Absolutely.
We would love to hear more from Pam.
Yes.
I'm glad she's listening again. I'm glad she's listening and paying attention to this again. And because no matter what you might feel about me, I really don't have any ill will towards her or anything like that. And I really hope she enjoys most of what she hears on here because, to tell you the truth, a lot of times I'm pretty darn complimentary to Electric Light Orchestra and Jeff Lynne in general.
You really are, which was unexpected for me because I know your music is like all over the place, and I know that you get the hard punk stuff. You go to the Vangelis synthy kind of in classic and Tull and everywhere, and I know that E.L.O. is really super slickly produced. And it's like this, some people say it's overproduced, and I just didn't really see you as someone being that taken by stuff that would be as well produced as E.L.O. So it's kind of like been, oh, that's good. He actually likes E.L.O. more than I thought he would.
There's a difference between Jeff Lynne's type of overproduction, where he seems to have a point to what he's doing, or something like Bruce Fairbairn's overproduction on a lot of stuff like Aerosmith and a lot of 80s hard rock stuff where it really softened it. 80s, 90s Aerosmith where it's trying to kind of almost imitate the Wall of Sound type of thing.
Right.
And it sounds about as bad as most later Phil Spector stuff when you look back on it. It sounds so of its time. And it just sounds like so much. It just sounds so hollow and so robotic, I should say.
Right.
You can get a good bass tone in it. It's just thin. It's just very, very thin. production-wise.
Right.
Jeff Lynne knows what he's doing. He knows where to put where things need to be and when things need to be. I think he's gotten to where it's just okay. Let's go ahead and do this in some cases, but if you listen to a lot of his production for Tom Petty, he produced some of the Heartbreakers' better albums. I mean, Southern Accents is an okay album. Let Me Up, I Had Enough is not an okay album. They were starting to have a career slide at that point. Then all of a sudden, Tom Petty goes with the Traveling Wilburys, then does his solo album Full Moon Fever, one of the best albums he's ever done, produced by Jeff Lynne.
Yeah.
Then Into the Great Wide Open, one of his band's best albums that they've ever done, again produced by Jeff Lynne.
Yeah.
Jeff Lynne practically saved Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers from being a nostalgia act, practically.
Yeah, he did.
Yes, and that's how good Jeff Lynne is as a producer. Dave Edmonds' 80s stuff, some people thought it was a bit overproduced, but looking back on it, Jeff Lynne did a good job on those too.
Yes, he did.
And a lot of people don't hear it because for some reason, I don't know why Dave Edmonds is not more popular than he is.
Well, I think its information is out of print, and I don't know why. And I there's a song that was on it. What have I got to do to win? And I freaking love that song, but I can't find it. It's not. You can't. I tried looking on CD. I tried buying it from Amazon. I don't think it's on Spotify, but it's a great freaking song, and it's from. I don't know if maybe it was a B-side or something, or if it's not on the album, but the information was the album where I found out who Dave Edmonds was. Because video on Night
Jeff Lynne produced, I think, 2 albums for Dave Edmonds, and then the albums sound like a dry run for the Tom Petty stuff.
Yeah.
And for the Wilbury stuff, it's really pretty good. I mean, it's not up there on the same. I mean, it's not the best Dave Edmonds albums, but that's more Edmonds than it is Jeff Lynne.
Mm-hmm.
He was more kind of trying to go, well, why aren't I popular at this point?
Yeah,
I'm on everything.
Yeah, I'm sure. Okay, I think before this turns into another one of our hour-long bonus tracks episode, we should probably
exactly
end it here, and we'll move on. And then
Pam, yeah, we would like to hear more from you. No matter what you think about me, I'll be more than willing to keep my mouth shut about anything else. But from this point on, but no matter what you think about me, you are a fountainhead of information. So you do have stuff that is worthwhile and worthwhile providing to us, and we wish that you had more. Because just because you may not care for 50% of us doesn't mean that what you have to say is not valuable. So it is very valuable, and we do wish to hear more from you.
Yes, I want the purposes of this podcast, one of them anyways, to get information out there about E.L.O. And if I can't find it on the database or do a Google search, I'd like you to chime in. I did ask her about Danger Ahead because I couldn't find much about it, and she wasn't able to find much about it either. She helped out some with Drum Dreams because there wasn't much about that to find. So yeah, we need reliable information, and if we get something wrong, tell us what we got wrong so that we can fix it in the bonus episode or whatever. Yeah. All right.
No news here.
Yeah. All right. If we haven't lost anybody yet, we'll end it here. Okay.